well, it's a new day. It's time to put some metal up inside the building. I've been slacking on you on the videography here lately. We've got our electrical put in, all of our plumbing roof in, got our heat and air system put in. So I'll walk you around here real quick and sort of show you some of the things I've done to get ready to put finished walls up. Those guys are coming today. They're going to try to start on my ceiling, get it put in, and then they'll knock a couple of these walls out hopefully, and then they can get us finished up this week, and we'll be ready for a garage door, and we'll be ready to wrap this thing up here in a few days. So I'll show you around here, show you a few things I've done. That way if you're getting ready to build one, you might steal an idea. I don't have many good ideas, but I'll show you what I've done, and maybe you can glean something from it. So I'll show you around. All right, I'm going to be putting metal panels on the wall. So all my electrical and plumbing and everything will be behind the metal. So I'll show you kind of what I did in prep for that. When I laid this building out, obviously I wanted my electrical meter on the inside, not over here on the outside of the building. So what I did is we've brought the main panel in on the interior wall, and then I've got a piece of conduit running under the concrete over here to a small sub panel. That way it'd be easier to tie in outlets and plugs over here on this side of the building without having to go up 14 feet all the way across the ceiling and back down. And then if anything ever happens in the future, I could take one piece of metal off and still be able to access this panel and get to this wall, so it wouldn't make things so difficult. I tried to think ahead on the electrical, and I'll think of something I should have done differently after they get all the metal put up. That's typically the way it goes. But what I've done is I have set up a 220 outlet next to a 110. And so basically I've just covered this wall. That way I should have the flexibility to hook up what I'd need to down the road. But these guys, I want these boxes to be centered up on my metal panel, so we've just tacked them in place. That way when they're putting their metal up and see where the center sections of those metal panels are going to be, they can pop these loose, slide them over, and then re-secure them. So we've got 220. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. And then what I've done down here on the end is I had them run me a box to set up for a 50 amp breaker here. That way if I ever put wanted to have a stick welder down here on this end of the building, I'd have that cable already in place, so we'd be able to tie in right there. But I've paired up a 110 outlet next to all my 220s. That way we should be able to cover whatever we want to. One other thing that I did do is anytime you're working over a workbench, your lights are going to be, ceiling lights are going to be coming from behind you, so you'll have a shadow over your workbench. So I went ahead and had them put me a box up here up about 8 feet, and it's switched down here. That way in time, if this is going to be a workbench area down here, I could put me an overhead light up there, and that way you'd have some light over your workbench. I did it here, and I did it over on the other side of the building as well. If you have followed along, you'll know that we're going to actually camp out in this thing while we build a house next door. So I went ahead and had them run internet and cable in here. That way we'll have the flexibility to do whatever we need to do. If you've not seen any of my prior videos, these green pipes sticking up is laid out for a dust system in time. So when I turn this into a shop, I've got these 4-inch pipe are stubbed up. That's tied into a 6-inch trunk, which goes over and comes up on the outside over there. That way I could hook a dust collector outside the building, and that way I don't have to listen to it in here. So that's what that's for. And then this yellow plug down here in the floor, that's actually electrical outlets conduit tied into the box. My table saw will sit somewhere right in here, and that way I'll have power out in the center of the floor. All right, with me finishing the inside of this building with metal, around garage doors sometimes can be a little difficult to trim out around. So what I did is I had a local metal shop build me basically a 90-degree piece of metal here, trim metal, and basically it's 1 inch here. That way it could slide back into my jam trim, And then I've had them bring it out 8 inches, but what will essentially happen is I'll have them bring their J channel over here on this metal, and then that way we'll be able to trim our doors out. And then I've got a piece to cover the header up top, and then that'll actually go all the way to the ceiling. That way all my door hardware can mount up, and we won't have anything to worry about when it comes to finishing around that garage door. As for a garage door, I originally was going to put just a standard garage door opener, so I've got an outlet up there plugged in to tie into my opener, but there was a little change of plans. I was talking to the garage door company, and they've sold me on a garage door opener that mounts over here to the side of the door. So I came up here last night and added an outlet. That way we'll be right there in close proximity to the opener, so we can plug it up right there. All right, inside this room is going to be the bathroom and laundry area, so I went ahead and put insulation around this room. That way, if you got a washing machine in there running, you won't have to listen to the racket. So we've got our washing machine plumbed in, got a place for a dryer. Obviously, we got the shower, and then our commode and vanity will sit in here. Same thing on all of the electrical in here. I've just got everything just tacked in place, that way they can move it around. But one thing I did do on my lathing is I went ahead and where I will be hanging stuff potentially on the wall, I've put my furring strips every 12 inches. That way we'll have a place to screw something to if we need to. All right, I went ahead and had them to put me 2 frost-free hose bibs. I got one on the back side of the building, and then I've got one up in the front side of the building as well. That way you can tie on the hose wherever you're at and have water pretty much all the way around the building. I've installed a heat pump on this section of the building, so I built a platform up here. That way I could keep all my ductwork up top. So I just had my heat and air guy basically run his trunks and his feed lines over to the general area where we're going to have drops at. And once the ceiling goes in, we'll come back and terminate those and cut holes. That way we can get everything centered on our panels. Obviously, I'll have a big fan here in the center of the room, so we've got that attached. I got my return up there in the ceiling. That way I put my return over my little platform up to the second story. That way it'd be easy to change that filter out up there when I need to do that. They've already installed the metal up here in my little loft area, but what I did down here on the end is I built like a little utility closet. So this will give me access to get up into the attic space, and then this is where I will set my water heater at. And then that allowed me a chase to run ductwork down into the bathroom downstairs. They put a pressure reducing valve on. I thought this was a pretty cool valve, but this reducing valve's actually got a gauge built into it. That way you can see what kind of pressure you got. So I had never seen one of those before. I thought that was pretty neat. As for lighting the shop area, what I've done is I've got 4 outlets basically installed in the corners of this space. What I'm going to be using is these Hyperlight high bay lights, and those things put out a lot of light. So by having the outlets versus hardwired, that way while we're living here, I can unplug a couple of them if I want to. That way you don't have to have sunglasses in here to work. But even when I turn it into a shop, I think I'll use all 4 of them to light it up well. But I can unplug one if I need to. If I don't want that much light, I've got the flexibility to do that. Like I was saying earlier, I have probably forgot something. I've laid in bed at night trying to think of everything that I might use this building for down the road and try to plan ahead and put a wire there or put plumbing there. That way you've got what you need when you need it. But I'll think of something when they get the metal put up, and I'll just have to deal with it at that point. So I'm going to set you up down the corner, and we'll watch them put some metal on today. They're going to start on the ceiling, and then he said if they had some times, they'd work on a couple of these big walls. And hopefully we can get this thing buttoned up here this week. And then then we'll move on to something else. Alright, what we're doing here, this is the finished side. We got the color on the back side of the metal actually. So this will slide into their J channel, but what they've done is they've built or bent these tabs down, so when that slides in the J channel, you don't see that white backing on the J channel. You'll see this black finished edge. And then on the ends, so this is not flopping in the J channel. They've bent a lip down here, so when it sets in the J, it'll be steady and won't be sitting there flopping. He'll trim the top of that off so it don't hit on him when he slides it in his J. Now when they slide that in their J channel and you're looking at it from the end, you see a black finish piece versus looking through a gap and seeing that white through there. A little extra time makes for a neater job though. And when you're inside looking at it, you can see back in those holes, you see black instead of white. Trims it out pretty nice.